Pakistan has gone bankrupt.
Pakistan's fragile economy driving fuel prices to record highs and increasing.
Inflation is at a 48-year high.
Economic sovereignty is facing a critical juncture in early 2026 by a mounting foreign debt crisis and a sharp decline in investor confidence.
1960, South Korea sent delegations to Pakistan not to teach Pakistan anything, but to learn from it. Today, South Korea's GDP per capita is roughly $35,000. Pakistan's $1,400. What happened in between is one of the most fascinating, tragic, and completely preventable economic stories of the last century. Let's understand it. Okay, let's be clear. Pakistan is not some small, forgotten country. It has 240 million people, the fifth largest population on earth, more people than Brazil and Russia. It has nuclear weapons. It sits between India, China, Afghanistan, and Iran, some of the most geopolitically explosive territory on the planet. And yet, it's broke. Like genuinely broke. In 2023, Pakistan came within 3 weeks of being unable to buy food and fuel for its people.
Fuel prices in Pakistan have touched a record high. The government has increased prices by 35 Pakistani rupees per litre for petrol and diesel. This comes a week after the entire country was plunged in darkness due to Pakistan's biggest ever power outage.
Banks were refusing to issue import letters. Businesses were shutting down because they couldn't get raw materials. The Pakistani rupee had fallen more than half of its value in just 2 years. Inflation hit 38%. And the thing is, this wasn't the first time. This was the 25th time Pakistan had to go begging to the IMF for a bailout. Yes, 25 times. That's not a crisis. That's a system. In 1960s, Pakistan was growing at 6.8% per year. India was managing at 3.5%. South Korea was watching Pakistan and taking notes. And one time, the New York Times wrote that, and I want you to understand how extraordinary this is, that Pakistan could achieve the kind of economic milestone that only the United States have achieved so far. That comparison was not with India or Bangladesh or South Korea. The comparison was straight with America. So what went wrong? Let's understand that. In November 2025, the IMF published something remarkable, a governance and corruption diagnostic of a 186-page forensic report. It did not mince words. It said Pakistan is suffering from elite capture. The Pakistani state has been systematically used to make a small group of people rich at the expense of everyone else.
Corruption and elite privilege drains 6% of Pakistan's GDP every year. 6% of the GDP. Here's how Pakistan loses it. Subsidies for the connected, tax exemptions for the influential, state contracts for friends, cousins, cousins of friends, and friends of cousins, and policies meant to serve only the elite. So those at the top get everything, and those at the bottom of the pyramid, get nothing. The IMF calls it state capture.
And it projects that fixing this alone could grow Pakistan's GDP by 5 to 6.5% over 5 years. The money is there, it's just been stolen legally. Here is what elite capture looks like in practice, and I want you to really feel this. In Pakistan, only about 3.2 million people out of 240 million people file income taxes. That's 1.3% of the population. Pakistan's agriculture sector, dominated by feudal landlords, many of whom are literally members of parliament, pays virtually zero income tax because agriculture income tax is a provincial matter and provincial governments run by the same landlord families, so they just don't tax themselves. Meanwhile, a middle-class salaried employee pays 20 to 35% income tax.
बहुत बुरा असर है भाई, ये कि पहले जैसे इंसान थोड़ा बहुत फिर भी बच जाता था, अभी बिलें भी बहुत ज़्यादा आ रही है। और जो है घर के खर्चे भी बहुत बढ़ गए। और ये कि मुश्किल तो बहुत होती है। ये तो जैसे मैं अपने बच्चों को अपने आपको जैसे मैंने रखा हुआ है ना, बस ये अपनी एक लिमिट बना के रखा है ना, तो मैं चाहती हूँ कि अल्लाह मेरे बेटे को जल्दी बड़ा करे ताकि ये इंशाल्लाह।
And every time the IMF comes in and says, hey, raise taxes, the government goes to the same well, squeeze the middle class again and leave the landlords alone and repeat. Okay, as I dug deeper, I realized Pakistan doesn't have one problem, it has 4 broken machines all working against at the same time. Let's understand it. First, energy trap. Back in 1994, Pakistan needed power plants fast, so the government invited private companies called Independent Power Producers, IPP, to build them. Sounds reasonable, right? But here was the deal they offered. We pay you whether your plant runs or not, and we'll pay you in US dollars. This is called take or no pay contract, and in a country where the currency constantly loses value against the dollar, that's a slow motion financial suicide note. As of 2025, Pakistan's circular debt in the power sector crossed 2.6 trillion PKR at its peak. That's roughly $9 billion. Distribution companies cannot collect enough money, partly because electricity theft accounts for over 20% of all power supplied. So they cannot pay the power plants cannot pay the fuel suppliers, and the government has to constantly inject cash to stop the whole chain from collapsing. That cash comes from more debt.
देखो ये 18,500 का बिल है।
See this, I've got a bill for 18,500, but I only earn 15,000 rupees per month. How will I pay it? I have only 1 fan and 2 energy saver bulbs. How can the bill be so high? I hardly earn enough to provide food for my children. If I pay this bill, how will I feed my children?
This is a system designed to fail. Machine 2, the tax void. Pakistan's tax to GDP ratio is roughly 10 to 11%. For a country of 240 million people, compare that to India at 18%, South Korea at 28%, or even Bangladesh, which has been catching up fast. That means the government is perpetually starved out of money. Every year it needs to borrow just to fund basic services like schools, hospitals, roads, and every year the interest on those borrowings eats more of the budget. At its worst, 60 rupees out of every 100 collected in taxes went straight to paying interest on debt. Not healthcare, not schools, not defense, just interest. Machine 3, the debt spiral. In 2000, Pakistan's total public debt was roughly 3.1 trillion PKR. Today it was roughly 60 trillion PKR. That's a 20-fold increase in 25 years, and in FY 25 to 26 alone, Pakistan owes $25 billion in debt repayments. The only reason it hasn't collapsed is that China, Saudi Arabia and UAE rolled over and gave $12 billion of that. Without those 3 countries agreeing to wait, Pakistan defaults. That's how thin the margin is. Machine 4, the export stagnation. Pakistan's exports have been stuck around 30 to 32 billion per year for the past 15 years. That's not growth, that's complete flatline. Almost all of it is low-value textiles, cotton, yarn, fabric, basic garments, no pharmaceuticals, no tech, no services to speak of. Pakistan is still selling the same cotton it was selling in 1970. Every time growth picks up, imports surge, reserves fall and crisis returns. This has been a stop-and-go cycle for 50 years. And here is my take on all of this. Pakistan crisis is not primarily economic. It's political, I think. A narrow class of people like landlords and military-linked businesses, political dynasties have captured the state and have no incentive or interest to reform it. Every IMF bailout gives temporary relief. None of them remove the people who caused the problem in the first place. And secondly, Pakistan has approximately 160 to 170 nuclear warheads. It borders Afghanistan, which is Taliban controlled, Iran, which is under war and sanctions, India, which is its ultimate rival, and China, which is a superpower. An economically collapsed Pakistan is not just a humanitarian catastrophe, it's a global security emergency. That is why the world keeps bailing it out, not out of charity, out of fear. The difference was a series of choices: to invest in people over power, to build institutions over dynasties, to choose the long game over the next election. Pakistan never made those choices, at least not yet. The question for the next decade is whether it still can. Nations without a vision die slowly. Pakistan has been dying slowly for the long time. If you like these kind of deep dives and case studies, you have to do one thing, that is subscribe, and subscribe. Thank you for sticking till the end. If you want to say anything, if you want to give any feedback, please let me know in the comment box.